secrets of sand. There are remote areas where hidden doors open to the astonishing beauty of the Sahara Desert. Many secrets are revealed in the immensity of wind and sand. Enigmas which from time to time spring from their invisible world to reveal their mysterious existence. And of all the Saharan secrets, water is perhaps the greatest wonder which the desert hides, the secret treasure, the source of life. This project came about from another Therai project in which 9 countries from the Mediterranean basin were involved. One of them was Morocco. Nationwide seminars were held in each country to identify the needs of the population. And from these national seminars, an international seminar was organized in Spain. And that's where we learned where each association presented different projects which could be of interest, and that's where we found out about the Kitaras and about oasis culture.
There used to be a lot of nomads in this area, and as they are constantly traveling, there was a very wide stretch of land space here where the vegetation is, and they thought that maybe it would be good for agriculture. Back then, one of my grandfather's friends, both are dead now, was looking for water near the mountain there. And he found that the water table, as you say, wasn't very far. Since the river was going downhill, we were able to canalize the water and bring it down from the mountain to the oasis.
And that was the first Kitara your grandparents built it?
Yes, and that of the people outside there. There's only one person left from that generation that started the irrigation system. This Kitara region has a very important cultural and historical component. The Kitaras are considered an area of agricultural world patrimony by UNESCO. They originated in Mesopotamia in the 1st century before Christ. The Kitaras started in old coal mines dug by the Persians, who realized that these mines, once they were no longer productive, could be used to reach and transport water. Then the Romans, in contact with the Persians, spread Kitara technology throughout Europe between the 1st and 3rd centuries, and then the Arabians in the 7th century, when they expanded from the Arabian Peninsula, extend the use of Kitaras over North Africa. The project basically consists of getting more water for the oasis than what is currently being tapped, and we're going to do this by extending the system of water canals, which is what the Kitara is. We're going to extend them some 1.2 kilometers towards the mountains there, which stretch south and where rainwater accumulates. So, with this additional quantity of water, we're going to irrigate all year round an area which is some 3 kilometers from the main oasis, which the people here have traditionally cultivated during the sporadic rainy seasons, off and on, and now they'll be able to cultivate it all year round. Secondly, once the water source is ready, we're going to repair the canal systems from the oasis to the new agricultural area. Additionally, we're going to plant productive date palms in the new area which, in a period of 6 to 8 years, will provide the local people with a source of income thanks to the sale of dates.
In fact, this settlement exists because the Kitara was built. Water attracts life, and without water there is no life. That's why these people exist. First, the irrigation system was built, the Kitara, which created the oasis. And from there, as you can see, you come in and it's another world. It's a garden, and there's not only vegetation, there's fauna and flora. And thanks to this, people can live here. Without it, there wouldn't be any human settlement. And in this trip, we've been able to see that since it has rained, there's an abundance of water. And if you look around, you can see new growth. plants. We've seen eagles, we've seen fish, we've seen frogs. Life is being generated. Water here is life, and it's opportunity.
In the case of a city council like that of Zaragoza, many factors were involved. One of them is that this year we've got the World Expo dedicated to water that's being held in Zaragoza. And Zaragoza and the Aragon region have always been very sensitive towards water-related issues. And we can say that one way or another, the city of Zaragoza is currently positioning itself as a city, strategically speaking, at the center of water-related issues. And this has repercussions in the areas of municipal action and also in cooperation activities. So water and sustainable development are mottos that we've assumed in the field of cooperation, and so we're very sensitive to projects like these.
How do you develop a process of identification? Well, normally, through one channel or another, associations in Spain receive a proposal from a local association. From there, we try to adopt the philosophy of the project involved, and we go on site in order to see firsthand what the needs are, to work with the local population, to get to know each other, to gather all the equipment which we'll need to meet specifications, and to submit the project for financing. And especially, most important of all, is to establish communication between the two associations, to agree on what needs to be done and how, to create links, to foster trust, and those are the basics. Later, to implement the project,
the operation is presented by the tribal leaders, those who head each of the 36 families, and with them we've been discussing work methods, and this has given us knowledge of the terrain, of how they've been making their guitars, how they've been expanding them, and therefore setting a course for us to follow. And this will allow, after all these discussions with them, that they'll be the ones in charge of the project. They'll be the ones implementing the project and forcing us to change our preconceived ideas to adapt to local reality. It's really them who are doing the project. For someone from the desert who travels to Europe, it's very difficult. It's not the same. It's not the same culture. It's not the same religion. Nothing's the same. It's very hard to integrate. Very hard to become integrated there. It's also true that from all of North Africa there's a lot of immigration that has arrived in Spain, in Zaragoza too. And also there's the historical immigration from the Sub-Saharan nations. But most immigrants in Zaragoza have come from North Africa. Algerians, Moroccans, with their families. So we have to position ourselves to support those less developed countries where the standard of living is causing a situation of migration. There are many factors, and one of them is the quality of life, the distribution of resources and economic development, and social development. The only work they're going to find is in tourism. That's why you see a lot of children around with bags. They're selling rocks. When they are 14 or 15 years old, they go up to the dry mountains where they gather fossils and rocks. People work there. They don't have to leave the village and go to the city to find work.
That child surprised me too. Well, he didn't really surprise me, but you have an image of Morocco related to immigration, of people wanting to leave the country, wanting to find a better life. Whereas here, you meet young people, people looking for a way to stay here and continue living in their houses, maintaining their traditions and living happily.
He's over there working in construction. Over there, they pay good money in construction. We've tried to set it up so the project would generate as many economic resources as possible for the region. We've avoided bringing in external companies. That way, the economy generated by the project would benefit the people here. So, following the same organizational principles we've applied before, it's the local people who are doing the work. It's the local people who are building the system. It's the local people who are getting the salaries for the construction work, for specialized masonry, for the expansion of the entire system.
Another secret of the desert is its women, behind veils which at times seem made of steel and which hide their face from the world. Untangling their mysteries is like following Ariadne's thread through the labyrinths of the Minotaur. Veils which weave stories of solitude, renunciation and submission. And yet, it is these confined women with all their encompassing gaze and their silence who weave the tapestry of life in this desert. Our association works with the community, but especially with women and children. For women, we have 2 training centers, here and in another village 20 kilometers away. In order to motivate these women, we are, on the one hand, teaching them to value their work, and on the other hand, to give them some independence with a small income. We do textile exhibitions. It seems like very little, but for women who don't earn money, it's a big thing. Many of the cooperation projects that are being carried out in North Africa have a clear gender perspective. And it's worth asking, to what extent are the women who are benefiting from these projects going to gain personally, going to gain in freedom?
Well, I look at this as a type of process, and processes have to start somewhere, sometime. We start with work, with sensitivity issues, with training, with teaching skills, and at the same time with raising awareness of capabilities, of possibilities, and in this specific case, for women. It's very likely that the first generation of women, the first group of women who experience this process, will have a double workload. This personal productive experience will be added on to the family-related workload, all the household work they do. But we're talking about fundamental changes for women. And this process involves education and training, breaking from the closed circle of family life, from children, and from the community life of the village. Before, girls couldn't go to school. That was our tradition. Well, they could go, but their parents wouldn't let them. Girls used to be raised to work in the house. Nowadays, there are girls going to school, but only here. Most of them don't go to Rishani to finish their schooling. They stay here to help their mothers. They work in the kitchen. And when they're finished with that, they go looking for food for the animals. At 11 o'clock in the morning, they have to come up and make bread. Then at sunset, they go to get water. They go looking for wood to cook food. The poor things spend all the day working, so they have no time to go to school.
I may have a broader perspective than my male colleagues do, because the women here have opened up to me. When Pedro is around, they become very shy and suspicious. And I've never had any problems with the men around here. They've always shown respect towards me, and I've never felt that they see me as a woman.
لا سهل المتسقط
Here in the village, we only have a primary school. After the age of 7, the children must go to Ričani to attend secondary school. Most families who have a son that was able to finish primary school, they send him to Ričani because they have a boys' boarding school there. But it's much more difficult for a girl. It's hard for boys and girls to be separated from their families when they're so young, but it's especially difficult for girls to be allowed to finish their studies in Ričani for cultural reasons. But thanks to the work of our secretary, who is the administrator for the Ričani Secondary School, and thanks to our association too, we formally applied for the creation of a girls' boarding school in Ričani. The closest boarding school for girls now is in Račidia, 130 kilometers away. 5 years ago, only 1% of the girls from here finished their schooling. But not anymore. Now, we've got a teacher in our association who is teaching them. For example, the first year the school was set up, 20 girls from here were sent, and that figure increases every year. We've been coming to this area since about the year 2003. And I remember that at first women wouldn't look at you directly. They were extremely shy. They even covered their faces when you walked by them. But not anymore. Now they show their curiosity. From the youngest girls to the oldest women, they're willing to talk to you, to let us get to know them. They're very hospitable. They're willing to let us into their homes to answer questions. They accept us. I think they're very broad-minded towards others. I'm looking for projects for women for their development. If they have resources, they can have more equality. They can do anything they want while respecting their families and their culture. They can change many things in their lives and in their homes, in all aspects of their lives, if they have a little money. That's why I'm looking for future-oriented projects. We're halfway through our trip. And is this your first time here on site to see the day-to-day of a cooperation project?
Yes, it is.
It's probably too soon for detailed analysis, but can you give us some of your first impressions regarding the project?
For me, every cooperation-related trip is a process of discovery. It's a process of discovery because the written word, photographs, and even video, well, they may show us a perspective, but to see the people in their real element, in their gatherings, in their expressions, in their work, this sort of thing gives you a totally different dimension. And then there are other aspects like the organizational activities and how people are responding to development projects. In this sense, I'm very happy with what I'm seeing here. And this is usually the case. I mean, maybe because we're dealing with decentralized projects, with specific, comprehensible goals, and that they're easy to approach rationally. Well, the thing is, you often get the impression that things are working. You see the protagonists, each playing their part. And in this case, because of the local organization and its impact, I'm very impressed with the project, with how the association has brought people together, how the association has motivated them, how it has become a reference for the local people and for the local administration. All of this is very, very important. For me, this has really been a turning point. When I first came to Morocco to work with the Oasis communities, it was all such a discovery and such a change in perspective. I had to change a lot. I had to change my way of thinking. I had to change my way of seeing things. It's been very enriching for me. And I'm sure that the work I've done, I'm sure that I've got a lot more out of it than I've been able to give. In fact, loads more. In the end, you realize that a lot of selfishness is involved, because it is also wonderfully satisfying. It's satisfying because the work has an impact. People are benefiting from it directly. You meet these people. They show their generosity, their hospitality, and they're great hosts. And they are very curious about things. In the more remote areas, they show a certain innocence, so to speak, in the way they deal with you. It's really fulfilling, very enriching.
That's the big question. Well, look, most of all, this is about putting a face on the statistics that I've been seeing from Spain for quite a while now. Putting a landscape to the news we've been getting in Spain. And behind the policies and the headlines of world events, there are people. Specific people living their lives. And sometimes we think that they are part of a very closed world. But maybe it's the world that closes them in. Because they are not close-minded people. So it's been super interesting for me, totally enriching. And the contact with them, with the people, and the work here. I've never done this kind of work where I've felt so involved and so motivated. And I've never been part of a team where there's been so much excitement, the kind you find in a cooperation project. Are you a happier man now?
Yeah, I suppose so. No, it's true. I am. And I'm working a lot harder. When I'm in Spain, it's more complicated. Lots of paperwork, numbers, budgets, administrative staff, management, dealing with government agencies. Everything's really, really complicated, really dry. But when you come here, it's like recharging your batteries, and it gives you the energy to go back to Spain and carry on the good fight, looking for funding, putting together all the necessary steps to bring the funds here and implement the project. Actually, to tell you the truth, if it weren't for the energy we get here on site, we wouldn't be able to do the work involved back in Spain. The work in Spain, I don't know. The work there in Spain, in Zaragoza, is a lot harder for me than the work here.
Well, yes. In fact, emotionally, I've created links here that I would like to maintain. Not only through the individual friendships that I have with some people here, but the work relationships. I'd like to keep working with them because these are people who want to prosper, to carry out projects, to develop. And I'd like nothing more than to support them, all that I possibly can. The last secret is that the desert freezes time. The image of dusk falling on this lagoon framed our departure with its metallic reflections. A mirage of emotions rippling across these newly born waters. The wasteland upon which nothing grows, transformed into a fertile Saharan delta, will remain intact in our memory, a reminiscence which time cannot blur. It was the image of a journey whose destination is always return, 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 return. And even though the water, following its designated course, returns to the depths of the desert, leaving behind its desolate prints of salt and sand, we know that this eternal moment facing the lagoon at dusk will forever be our secret.